Just in terms of a quick introduction from myself, I'm Alex Burnham. I'm the head of IT audit and security for Four Visitor Bars Island. I can see from your faces, nobody ever wants to listen to an auditor. But I guess I come from a bit of a different background. Originally, I come from a military background, delivering high security networks and systems globally. So I come from a technical background as opposed to the audit. So I suppose in terms of the scope of this presentation, a lot of my job is working with clients and understanding their requirements. So one of the top questions I get, well, the questions I get asked on a continuous basis is, how do we protect our environment? And what are the key controls and solutions that we need to put in place? And how do we do that in a proportionate manner to ensure that we're not wasting money and it's in line with our expenditure and capability? And I guess most of all, in line with our risk appetite. Other questions we get asked all the time is, when do we need to employ a senior solution? Everyone seems to be the key focus of XDR and C. When do us as an organisation need to deploy the senior solution? What sort of size organisations does it suit? And more specifically, what sort of data sources should we be putting into our SIEM solutions to get the ultimate responses? Other areas I get asked for all the time, and it becomes no surprise, is around AI. Everyone wants to move forward with AI as quick as possible and sort of utilise the benefits that AI can bring to the organisation. However, as I hope you all know, the risks and threats around the use of AI and the impacts, the negative impacts that it can have to an organisation are quite strong, quite formidable actually. I spend quite a bit of time speaking to audit and risk committees and boards about that level of risk. And it certainly opens up areas because we see it as that golden sort of route to efficiency and new business. Whereas when we look at the governance levels we have, and the technology we have to have in place, and the understanding of the technologies to ensure that it's adequately protected and you're not exposed as an organisation. Then I guess the final question that is probably key to my business currently is around compliance. Here in Ireland, NIS2, DORA, a plethora of other compliance requirements are really making a significant impact to organisations. And where you look at the multiple compliance requirements, organisations are really looking at it and saying, how do we do this effectively and efficiently so we're not sort of misusing resources across the compliance requirements. So hopefully I mentioned the 5 subject matter experts that are going to present today. Hopefully they'll be able to answer some of those questions for us in relation to the technology and systems that they offer. In addition, obviously the guys have got a short time, it's only an hour presentation. So each of the guys have got stands out there on the floor. So if you have any sort of detailed questions in relation to the service lines and the products that they're discussing in their presentation, please feel free to liaise and catch up with them out on the floor. So I guess just to finish off, what we will be doing is we'll be doing a Q&A session at the end, probably 15 minutes, and for you to get the maximum benefit of this, obviously the key area is for you to ask the questions to the guys, to be that opportunity at the end. So I think that's pretty much enough of me speaking on. Alan, if I can hand over to yourself. Here's the magic clicker.
Thank you, Alex. Just click over to my slide. So my name is Alan Kelly and I'm from Level Blue. And today I'm going to give a presentation on unified threat visibility, leveraging SIEM and OpenXDR in relation to the data infrastructure defense. So some of you will already guess that I'm from Cork with the accent. And I'm joined today with my colleague Rebecca, who's down the back, and she's at the stand as well with me today. So the challenges that we're seeing today in data infrastructure defense are complex hybrid infrastructure. So no longer are organizations having a single office, they have multiple offices. Those offices could be spread across the world and they could have different capabilities. They could have remote workers, they could have SaaS solutions, they could have private cloud. And all of these are adding to an organization's attack surface layer. This means there's more ways for an organization, or sorry, an attacker that could get into your organization. We're also seeing attackers are rapidly moving across environments. In the last 2 years, we're averaging about 60 minutes where an attacker can get into your environment and laterally move across your environment. This is very different than what we would have seen 5-10 years ago, where attackers would have been on your environment for weeks, months, planning their next steps. Now they're able to do things a lot quicker. We're also seeing attackers are evolving. So business email compromise. This is typically the number one incident everybody's going to see in their organization, and it's the number one thing that most attackers are trying to get. They're trying to compromise your email. Between 2020, the first half, and the first half of 2025, we see an increase in 214% in non-business email compromise. So that means attackers are no longer going for that easy or that simple target of your business email. They're going for other things. Now, there's a couple of reasons for this. One, we have increased attack surface. So there's more ways they can get into an organization. The second is they're being powered by AI and machine learning. So no longer are attackers limited by their capabilities or their resources. They now have AI machine learning that exponentially increases their capabilities. Now, the fourth point we have here is the organizational readiness. So we're seeing, or with a survey that we've done in the end of 2024, we've interviewed a number of senior executive level users across 14 different countries. 45% of them said that top priority was cyber resilience. In 2025, only 27% of those actually said they actually implemented anything to do with that. So this slide should give you an idea of what we're seeing, the issues. So environments are getting bigger. There's more ways for attackers to get into your organization. Attackers are getting faster. They're getting evolving. They're getting more intelligent. And then all organizations pretty much are falling behind this. So this is what we're typically seeing with an organization. It's like an onion. There's layered security. They have EDR for endpoints. They have email security for email. And the problem with this is if there is an incident in our environment, you have to jump between multiple different consoles to piece things together. And this is obviously time-consuming and resource-intensive. And as we've seen with the last slide, time is key here. So how we kind of manage this is that we typically would use something like an XDR. And an XDR solution is extended detection or response. What that means is it's a solution that can take data from multiple different security tools into a single pane of glass. So no longer are you having to jump between your vulnerability scanner, your email security, your endpoint solution. All of that telemetry is coming into a single solution, and you can get visibility across your environment. Now, what this means is typically it means that you can respond to incidents from within that single pane of glass without having to jump between multiple different consoles. Now, I mentioned earlier OpenXDR. OpenXDR is slightly different to XDR, and OpenXDR typically will integrate with different solutions in your environment that carry out specific capabilities, where XDR might have that capability in. So, for example, XDR might be a solution that has a vulnerability scanner built in, where OpenXDR would be a solution that has a vulnerability scanner built in, but it can also integrate with solutions that are vulnerabilities like Qualys, Tenable. What this means is that an organization can keep their initial investment that they have with Tenable or Qualys and bring that telemetry back into their XDR solution. I'll just go on to the next slide. So here is a breakdown of a SIEM versus OpenXDR. So SIEMs are kind of a legacy tool, but everybody's still using them. But how they kind of overlap with XDR is they have some capabilities. So an XDR will have log collection just like we would have seen with SIEM. But XDR then has multiple other capabilities as well. It will have things like endpoint detection. It will have things like network intrusion detection. It will have things like cloud and hybrid visibility. So we'll be able to integrate with, like, say, your private cloud, your AWS, your Azure, things like that. whereas traditional SIMs don't have those capabilities. We have XDR then that would have typically vulnerability scanning and would have threat intelligence. Again, traditional SIMs typically wouldn't have those capabilities. And this is the benefits of having something like an XDR that's providing you an additional kind of visibility across your environment, even if you do have layered security in place. Now, if we look here on the end of this slide, we can see some of the performance metrics between the likes of SIM and XDR. And we can see typically with a traditional SIM, it could take days to create an actual use case or a rule detection rule. And this is typically because they're using things like SQL language or query languages to create those rules and to test them. Whereas in OpenXDR, typically you can create rules within minutes and seconds because they're using simple English. We can see things here like the mean time to detect and the mean time to respond is drastically increased or quicker when it comes to the likes of an OpenXDR versus a traditional SIM. Now, when it comes to who Level Blue are, we have a number of XDR offerings, which is why I selected this as the presentation. So who Level Blue are is we were previously AT&T Cybersecurity. So we've come out of AT&T, we've made a number of key acquisitions, TrustWave, CyberReason, Strauss Freeburg, and they've added to our portfolio and our capabilities, hence why we have a number of capabilities in every space. For XDR, we have a number of different offerings that we can provide. Now, where Level Blue is based, we pretty much have offices all over the world. We have one here in Ireland, we have one in the UK, we have a number across Europe, and we have some as well, of course, in the US and APAC Pacific. Now, some of the capabilities or kind of offerings that we can provide with Level Blue is not just limited to XDR. We have pretty much expertise in every single kind of cybersecurity element that you can imagine. We do things like pen testing, digital forensic, incident response. We have managed services like managed firewall, managed endpoint, managed detection and response. Anything you can imagine when it comes to cybersecurity, we cover. Level Blue itself is the world's largest pure play MSSP. What that means is that every single dollar that comes or that we get in revenue is from cybersecurity. It's the only thing we do. We're not a jack of all trades. The only thing we do is cybersecurity. We can see here, this is just a snippet of some of the capabilities that we have. We have consultancy. We have anything that you can imagine when it comes to cybersecurity, we can cover. Now, on the next page is just some of my contact details and my colleagues Rebecca's contact details. So if anybody does want to reach out to us and they don't have time to talk to us before the end of the day on our stand, please don't be afraid to reach out by email or phone number or whatever it may be. That's pretty much everything for me. I'm going to pass you over, I think, to Ryan is next.
Hello, everybody. It works. Okay, so my name is Ryan Mangan. I'm the CEO of Efficient Ether, and today I'm just going to talk a little bit about agentic AI. I'm not really going to go into products. I'm just going to kind of cover some of the concepts when looking at moving towards AI technology within the workplace, some of the pains and challenges that customers struggle with. And just to kind of give you a bit of a background, so I'm a chartered fellow for the British Computer Society, and I'm also a Microsoft MVP. And we've been working on building out agentic products with our portfolio for the last couple of years. And we've got a cloud cost optimization product which uses generative AI and agentic AI. And we also have an AI assistant for compliance which uses private sovereign security. And then we also have agentic app packaging technologies as well. So we've been doing this a while. And today I'm going to share some of these experiences. So most people don't realize this, and the term is shadow AI. A lot of organizations are already using AI of some sort within their businesses. It could be through a third-party product. It could be deliberate through things like Copilot, because obviously we know the powers that be at Microsoft want everybody to be using some form of AI which is derived from Copilot. That could be prompts, that could be files, that could be tickets. And then there's also the AI chat, and then there's the assistant. The challenge really with it is not about using AI, it's about, is it private, where's my data? And I think one of the challenges a lot of organizations don't realize is a lot of the terms you can kind of get signed up to is that they are going to, I think Slack was one where they pushed out a message saying that if you do not cancel your workplace or your subscription in a period of time, we're just going to use your data anyway. It's almost like an auto opt-in. And that can be quite dangerous. So really, SaaS and then private AI, SaaS is not your enemy, but it's more about the terms. So 2 types of AI. So there's passive and there's also active. Anybody using AI in the workplace today? Anybody using active or just passive? Anybody active? Automatic remediations and things like that? Nope, but everybody's using passive of some sort, drafting emails, marketing, things like that, right? So, Ask, Summarize, and Recommend is quite a powerful tool because, a human, we're pretty good in terms of our cognitive abilities, but, we can't operate at nanosecond speeds or, whereas an AI can. So if we put a lot of data into an AI, we can process and produce reports pretty quickly, which is great because it augments the workforce. And that's the term which will be coming out in the next couple of years, where using AI to accelerate. But then active AI is where it takes it a step further. This is where the agentic comes in. And that effectively is, it carries out the tasks. So it starts from you ask it a set of questions, it looks at log files and says, this user can't log on for X, Y, and Z. Would you like us to carry out this action? The risk there is with workflows and automation is, do you want it to automatically take that action, or do you want to have what we call a harness, or the ability to have guardrails and controls in place? Like, do we want to take this action, yes or no? And then on top of that, the governance is, how do we know it did what we asked it to do? And the problem with AI, again, is it's still in its infancy with things like hallucinations and all the other kind of gripes what come with it. So there is a risk there, and that's just one to kind of cover. So really, when you look at an AI product, it's not a case of, oh, we're going to move into AI. It's more about the governance. How does it do this? What is the risk? And how do we protect our data? Again, going back to SaaS, so a lot of organizations will not move to AI systems at the moment, especially in SaaS, because they're worried about the data. It's not about SaaS, it's not about private, it's about where the data is. What's been sent, what's redacted, who's got access, who's got control of it, what are the terms. So the risk isn't SaaS, it's more about the uncertainty. So for all the vendors out there who are building AI systems, they should really consider what the customers are asking and what customers want. And it's basically on trained data, evidence, and what are you retaining. So obviously when a customer is going out and buying products or looking at the marketplace and assessing, these are the sort of questions which you should consider. So who controls your AI data? So we built a product called Ether Assist, which is an AI assistant. It started off as an IT assistant, but we had this absurdly vast intake of compliance, people buying the product and using it for ISO 27001, risk assessments, risk analysis, all sorts of various things, document creation. And the reason why they were buying it wasn't because it was, as good as ChatGPT per se, or they couldn't just take something else. It is good, obviously, I'm going to say that. But it was more about where the data was. So a lot of these regulated organizations wanted to know that the data was in the UK, or in Ireland, or in Europe. The AI processing, where was the data processed? All of these kind of checks and balances. We're 42001 ISO compliant as well, so we have the controls and things in place, whereas a lot of organizations don't. So it was really about, all around, the contract, really, where, what is the product doing, how can we see what it's done, and, what's the audit trail. And this is the case, really, because you're putting a lot of data which could be sensitive into a system which could be quite dangerous. And I think it's quite an important kind of consideration to take when you're looking at buying AI technology. And the other challenge we've got as well is it's moving at such a fast rate. Technology, the people who are building and configuring the technology can't keep up with the actual technology itself. That is one of the other challenges. So, looking at AI in general, we looked at kind of how best do we approach it? What should we be looking for and how do we move forward? So I've put it into 5 steps. So the first one is data. So classify, minimize, redact. Does the product allow us to redact and sensitize data? Where is the data stored? Second is, least privilege. How much control does it have? How does it access? The days of using service principles where it has autonomy via a service account to take action is gone. It should be delegated using the individual and the individual controls, how that access is delivered and how long access is given and what access is given for that task. So least privilege is also quite an important point to take. Third is SaaS. So when we're looking at SaaS AI products, you need to be looking at supplier terms, retention, training controls, auditing. What are they doing so that you've got full auditability? I won't say the name, but I was in Berlin a few weeks ago with a vendor, and they showed this really impressive tool which carries out actions. And I said, okay, tell me what the AI did. And they went, what do you mean? It did this, 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 this. I said, that's fine, but what did it do on the back end? What was the log? What was the trail? What's the observatory log showing how it got to that decision and why it did that? And they missed that piece. So that's a risk in itself. Then, let's say something does go wrong within an action. How do you roll back? What action do you take? So is there ability for that change which has been made to be rolled back quickly? And we go back to the old ITSM stories of, change advisory boards and the approval process. The same applies with AI. How do we kind of revert back if something goes wrong? And then, as I've kind of already covered on the observatory side of it, back onto evidence, showing the run history, showing the outputs, and be able to track back from an auditory point of view what has been done, what has changed. So, the buyer's test. What data goes in? If it's not sensitive, it's not an issue. Put your shopping list into ChatGPT and put it into a fancy list before you go out on a Saturday morning, that's fine. But obviously putting in personal data, bank details, credit cards, all that sort of stuff isn't a good idea. Developers putting in secure tokens and access keys into AI publicly, not a good idea. One of the biggest problems developers have today is if a API is compromised for AI products, you can rack a bill up to hundreds of thousands of pounds overnight. So even developers have an issue. If they do not secure these keys for accessing AI services, a bad actor will obtain that. What's redacted? A lot of products are not offering the ability to redact personal data, something we built day one, but that's quite important. If you are putting personal data in, is it needed on the output? Can it be redacted as it's processed through? Where does that data run? Sovereignty. Do you need it to run in your island? Do we need to run in the UK? Do we need to run it in Europe? Where does that data need to be? ChatGPT and the other products, they run in the US. What are the sovereignty risks of that? Is that data retained? Are they training the models on your data? In 3 years' time, is your personal data going to come up if someone starts asking a question in ChatGPT? Hopefully not, but is that a risk? Possibly. And then finally, moving on to the final three, what can it do? Who approves it? And what evidence remains to kind of see what's happened, as we've already mentioned. So really, it's not a case of using AI. It's all about guardrails and governance. And these are the things you should consider when you are doing product assessment. So if you want to talk all about AI and see what we've been doing with AI technologies, we've got a stand at the back of the hall. Come and have a chat. If you've got any questions about governance, AI, and some risks or concerns you have, more than happy to talk them through, both technically and also commercially. Thank you, everybody. Nearly forgot, but actually quite a very good product, TP-Link, who I've sold in the past many times. Daniel's going to come now and talk about their fantastic product range.
Thank you very much. Oh no, it's not. It's NetAlly who's up next.
Dan Brunswick, NetAlly, also really good product. Yeah, nice to meet everybody. How's everyone doing? A few more coffees needed, I think. How's everyone doing? Learning's meant to be fun. Yeah, lively. Yes, Dan Brunswick. I've been at NetAlly for 4 years now, and then my background was in cybersecurity distribution as well for 4 years. So, yeah, subject matter expert. We're getting there, so that's very kind. But today, want to introduce NetAlly. Not many people, I think, know who NetAlly are, so it is going to be a quick introduction to who we are, what do we do, but then keep to the subject matter of visibility as well. Visibility can mean many things. It can cover many areas as well. So we've heard of SIEM solutions, SOC solutions, many layers to security, many things that we need to see. And I think one key area is quite missed with all of these in-depth solutions. So you can kind of see here, we're a handheld tool. What we're doing cybersecurity-wise with a handheld tool, right? So we want to make it simple. You don't need strenuous installs. You don't need strenuous agent-based deployments. where you do need those, but there's a complementary added ability of our tools, which is a simplicity. It's a on-site tool. You literally walk on site, you plug, you play. So you can connect copper, wireless, either. We go up to 10 gig, you can do fiber connections as well, and it is plug and play. So you go to your switch, you go to your port, you click a button. We're then going to give you some visibility into your network. So how do we do that? And this is the areas that are currently missed by these heavy agent solutions, SIEM solutions. Doorbells, printers, things that aren't going to be picked up by that installation. Rogue devices that have been added to the network after these installations have been done. Rogue access points, Bluetooth devices, the list kind of goes on. So when you enter a room with our device, we want to make it simple. You plug, you play, and then we do visibility. So CDP, LDP, EDP, SNMP, any kind of basic IP protocol. We will find those devices. We'll find VLAN information, MAC address information, the whole kind of shebang for you. So yeah, really, really good. And then collaboration as well. We're added layer of visibility, that added information. So we will work with those SIEM solutions through API. We'll work with wireless and network vendors like Cisco, like TP-Link, like Ubiquiti, all of the big players like Ruckus as well. So you can use those management platforms, but again, you're going to get a real live, added vendor-agnostic view on top of all of those solutions as well. So if there's any managed service providers in the room, there's plenty of services and added visibility that you can give to your clients as well. But yeah, who we are. Again, I'm kind of speaking, you don't know who we are yet. So we've had kind of 30 years in the game. I don't know if anyone remembers Fluke Networks. They're still around today, quite large. Yeah, very basic cable testing. We then went into NetScout, which was a lot of kind of heavy packet analysis as well. Lots of taps as well. And then, yeah, we're NetAlly now. So we're into the cybersecurity space. So the official term of what we do on our portfolio here, and we'll stick to the middle, is the cyberscope there. So network edge vulnerability scanning. So again, picking up those devices that are on the edge of your network. We're looking at the house, we're finding the windows, we're finding the doors, we're finding the cracks in the walls, and then we're going to be able to tell you, are they vulnerable or not? So again, your stack, you can have the doorbells, you can have the printers, you can even have your firewalls, right, which are access points monitoring data. But again, when you scale a network, thousands of devices, switches, servers, ports, everything that I've just mentioned, are they configured correctly? Do you even know where those devices are? So we'll do a topology map scan as well. So you can see exactly in a spidergram where everything is, where it's exactly connected to, and then if there's vulnerability. So we utilize Nmap in our tool, again, application-based. And you can write your own scripts, you can pre-down your scripts as well. So if there's a certain Cisco switch, for example, there was a Terrapin attack, you can plug your device in, you can find those thousands of switches into your enterprise solution, and yeah, you'll find them and then go update those manually. So we're saving time as well. I think the visibility piece is very important, but saving time for businesses to be proactive and to address threats is also very, very important. So we're taking a lot of the guesswork out of that, again, with a plug-and-play tool. Anything from cable testing to getting the correct power into your access points, into your servers, into your racks, so they're functioning correctly, so your cybersecurity stacks can function correctly as well. So we're kind of that health baseline, that health visibility to all of these added solutions that you have. So these kind of bits, to be honest, come to our stand, I think would be the best thing to do. We can give you a live demo on all of our tools. We can go through the tool itself and show you how simple, how easy it is to use, how quick they are, and do a live demo. So I don't have a remote screen, but we are actually connected to the staff Wi-Fi. Keep that one quiet, but also the guest Wi-Fi as well. And we're currently doing live discoveries and live topology maps at our stand, so you can see exactly what shouldn't and what should be in here. Is Clive in the room as well? Because you've got 2 laptops and an iPhone that's connected. So come find us. But then, yeah, visibility, again, it's not just your physical devices, right? It is real information. So we'll show you everything from kind of VLAN information into your stack. We'll also show you packet and analysis, latency, all of the things that you need to know to keep a healthy network going. And then I think, yeah, link live. So cloud, again, is tricky. Data's held across the world. So we also do on-prem stacks to manage this data for you, keeping it secure. And then that's kind of how the workflow works as well. So I got told off, I have 27 slides and only 10 minutes. But we are in all of kind of the key areas Oh, we're flying through. So telco, very large for us as well. Anyone really with a network kind of needs these tools to keep the health check running, keep everything going, and again, give you visibility into areas that you might struggle in. So manufacturing is another good one as well. Devices spin up or added to networks all the time. So just doing these health checks on a daily basis with a less skilled engineer as well is really, really handy. And with our tools, you can actually remote in and keep them in stack and charge over PoE too. So you can run these devices remotely. So if you do have customers with remote sites, oil rigs as well, places that don't have a connection kind of in the woods. So MOD use these for spinning up critical communication infrastructure as well. Our tools are used in these remote sites and deployed over there too. So I'll fly for you. To be honest, come to our stand. I haven't spoken for 10 minutes, but I think that's a really good kind of fresh overview for you. So yeah, come find us, and thanks for listening. Adrian Young's up next. Thanks, Adrian.
Everybody warm enough? Turn the heating up. Cool. Let's reset the timer there. Hi, I'm Adrian. I've been in cybersecurity for longer than I care to actually admit. I'm actually older than I look. So I remember things pre-Palo Alto, remember Checkpoint on Nokia boxes, all sorts of great things from my past. But anyway, I've ended up at a company called Color Tokens, and we do what Gartner call microsegmentation. But I don't want to talk about that. What I want to talk about is in the context of the presentations today, how layered defense can sort of lead to real business resilience, which is actually what we're all doing in cybersecurity. We're not doing security for the fun of it, because a lot of the time it's not fun. We're doing it to keep the business running. So that's the context of the presentation. And I want to introduce at this stage two key concepts. One is something we call MVDE, which is, the D is missing from the one on the front there. It's the minimum viable digital enterprise. It comes from minimum viable product, which was a phrase bandied around about 20 years ago when all the startups started saying, what I need to put together to create a product that somebody will invest in and that somebody will buy. Then it moved through McKinsey and PwC and people like that. And they said, well, that's a good concept. Let's talk about MVC, the minimum viable company, to get investment for. And then some bright spark said, how about minimum viable enterprise? What do we need in a company to keep it running? But that includes all the physical stuff. So I've come up with MVDE, which is the digital side of that. So, hey, it's never a problem to steal a good idea. So here's the agenda. So we're going to look at the common layers, since the theme is layers, and then reimagine those layers with the MVDE in the middle. Then look at breach readiness, which is the second thing I want to introduce you to, and then talk about why it's complicated. Why hasn't it been done yet? Why is it becoming more complex? Then look at the process that you need to go through to becoming breach ready, how you start the journey, and finally, the practical steps to do it. All sounds wonderfully easy, but it's not. So here we go. These are the sort of common layers of cybersecurity as I see them. You could have 15. You could have 5. It doesn't matter. It depends which ones are key to you. And we're all pretty familiar with, how the perimeter works, how identity works at the perimeter, how SASE tools determine who can get in and get out, how firewalls work as a perimeter defense. We've heard about endpoint, EDR, XDR, all that sort of stuff. Then you've got the network layer. This is where it starts to get really, really interesting. How do you protect a network at the network layer rather than the outer layers in case somebody gets in? Then very recently, last 5 years, API security has absolutely exploded because of the number of connections that now happen between applications. Then AI, okay? We all know what Mythos did. It found vulnerabilities, chained them together, and exploited defenses in very, very mature security systems almost instantly. That comes with its own problems. But protecting your own AI as well, as Ryan talked about earlier on, that's equally important, not allowing your stuff to be stolen. And we all know about DLP. That's been around for years. Then you've got the detection and response market. And finally, let's not forget, everybody needs recovery and response services. So these are the layers that we tend to think of around our MVE. just to give you a quick snapshot, this is the current spending on those layers. So the key thing here is not so much the individual percentages, because they will change organization by organization, but the reality is that certainly 50% and nearly 2/3 of all spend goes on preventing people getting in or reacting when they've got in. And the thin end of the wedge is response and resilience. Now, given that everybody's going to get a breach, wouldn't you want to rebalance that spending towards the other end and not spend as much at the other end, or spend more on the thin end of the wedge? And that's current. Those figures are current. So if we could look at the current sort of old linear model, this is the old NIST CSF. It should actually say govern and so on, govern, investigate, protect, detect, respond, etc. It's changed recently. But the key thing about this slide is we should not really think about it in a linear fashion, but we should think of it as having that MVE in the center of everything, and think about how all the tools that you're investing in around the outside can create a situation where no matter what layer you're thinking of or whatever technology, the MVE, which is the crown jewels, the thing that keeps the organization going, is protected. And that's absolutely key. So if we reimagine the layers, break them out, and think of them as an ecosystem instead, I think that's a more modern way of doing it. And what you get at the end of that is a protected MVE and a much stronger sense of business continuity, which is what the board wants, it's what the shareholders want, it's what the customers want too. So here's the second phrase. The second phrase is breach readiness, and we preach this at Color Tokens. We think that security is all about keeping the business running. So if you can think about being ready for a breach instead of trying to prevent one, you're probably in a better position than if you're just focusing on perimeter and preventing a breach. And it's a new question, and it creates a new mindset, and it creates a closed loop where you can evaluate, you can protect, you can respond, and then you can evolve, and that goes around in a circle. That's sort of the new thinking. So it's now about operational and business continuity. It's not just a security matter, and that means it moves from the CISO to other people in the C-suite, which is vitally important and probably gets you more budget if you can create this mindset. So, sounds really easy, but it's not, and the reason is that we got this massive conversion at the moment. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the phrases like Industry 4 and so on, and all the CAF regulations, etc. They're all now coming into place because there's a recognition that OT is connected to IT. Whether you like it or not, it is already doing it. It's no longer a drawbridge between the two. You've got IoT, that's been mentioned already today. I put a bid in for a bit of business at a cruise liner. There are 12,000 IP telephones on the ship itself, all connected to the main ring of connectivity, which then has a connection to the satellite and then into their data centers. They're a huge threat vector. Nobody thought of that before. We've all heard the story about the aquarium that brought the company down, or the printer that allows people in. It's true, it's happening. And then you've got to think about external supply chains. So when you've got companies coming in to connect to you, if you're an organization that's part of the CNI, Critical National Infrastructure, you've got third parties connecting to you all the time. You have no control over what their systems are or what their access control is, etc. So this idea of putting your minimum viable enterprise into the middle and ring fencing it with all these technologies is absolutely key. So, given that, why hasn't everybody done it already? Well, there's a process, and again, it's quite complex. But we see it as this: one, shift the mindset. Go from I want to prevent the breach to I still want to prevent the breach, but actually I'm going to be grown up enough to realize that I might not, and therefore I need to be ready for when the breach happens. And that's where the breach readiness comes into. And the process to becoming breach ready is a lot like we've heard talked about already. Visibility is key, 100%. If you can't see your assets and you can't see the way they're communicating and you can't see the dependencies on it, you have no idea about the risk. So the first thing is to generate that visibility. The second thing is to map it and understand it. Somebody called them spider diagrams earlier on. We go a little bit further than that, and we create taxonomies and we create maps that show the dependencies and so on. You can come and see it on the stand if you want. But by understanding the dependencies, the tools that we have can then tell you which the most risky are And you can say whether it's critical, whether it's part of the MVE, whether it's not, and you can create policy based on that, rather than the old school way of doing it just based on, does it have a CVE? Is it unpatched? I mean, these are all really important questions, but a server with a CVE that's unpatched that nobody uses and hasn't been switched on for 10 years is not a threat. So you have to apply context to it. Then the third thing you do is to segment the network, and this is where the clever stuff comes in. By creating policy that can go around single assets or groups of assets or applications, any of that kind of stuff, you can create a very tightly locked down network. So if somebody does get into the network, they can't move. And that's key, because if they can't move, there's no impact. And then we move on to isolation policies, and we move on to restore. So how we do this is we do a thing called a BRIA. We do an analysis of your network using either your existing EDR, some agentless gatekeepers, or some flow monitoring. We create a report for you. It shows you all the actionable output, and that enables you to plan how you become breach ready. It's not the entirety of the story, however, because once you've done the BRIA, you then have to get a team of people together to define the MVE, because it's not just technicians. It's going to be business analysts. It's going to be people who really understand the business. Then you do your protection using the policies, etc. You create your containment and restoration policies, and bingo, you should have a very, very much more business resilient organization once you've done those steps. So if anybody wants to see that in action, come and see us on the stand. But thank you very much for your time. And I'm handing over to Daniel. Good luck.
Right, so is it actually me next this time? It is, thank God. So my name's Daniel Marsh. I'm one of the senior pre-sales engineers at TP-Link. I've been with them now for probably about nearly 2 years. Been in the industry as a whole, coming up to 20 years, and makes me feel old. So obviously I'm a geek with social skills, so I generally get involved with a lot of project designs. Now, TP-Link being a vendor of networking equipment, I'm sort of trying to steer away from a product focus. That's why you need to come and see us on our stand, and especially outside of a demo van, if any of you have seen it. So in regards to TP-Link and what we're sort of offering in the business market at the minute and helping shape the digital frontier, is being able to offer the backbone of your network. So everything that connects, every form of technology that connects in the industry in today's world needs some form of switch, needs some form of connectivity such as access points, and as well as a gateway as well for that sort of cyber security threat analysis as well. So being able to offer that backbone that connects all people's systems and data together and ensuring that seamless connectivity. Now, we all know that with the increase in technology, the threats obviously increase with that as well. So us at TP-Link work closely with our partners, with our end users to understand the threats, to understand the trends that we're seeing, and being able to develop our solutions to combat that and obviously offer you guys the best level of protection that we can. So that's being able to offer that layer of security, that controlled access, and protecting that information as well, because everything is being transmitted in the digital format, which obviously is being transmitted over our level of equipment. So in regards to some of the stuff that we do obviously offer is in terms of scalability. We obviously see that digital growth era at the minute is expanding massively. So being able to actually scale our solutions to incorporate the likes, the increase of IoT devices, cars, for instance, electrical vehicles, these all need connectivity to make sure that the software is up to date, to make sure the connectivity is maintained. And this is where TP-Link and the Armada platform that we're using in today's era is there to help and obviously facilitate that. And what we also are doing is, again, working with our partners and being able to be ready for the next generation of the infrastructure. So as things increase and the threat levels increase, the connectivity increases, we're seeing a higher demand, even from the likes of sort of media. You know what I mean? Everything's about faster speeds, better resolution. With that, we need to obviously extend and make sure we've got the infrastructure in place. Things like 4G and 5G technology is increasing. The van that we've got outside today has got a fully contained internet connection in there, to which we can actually achieve about 100 meg connection. When I first came into the industry, that was only a pipe dream. You know, back in the days of 512 dial-up, when you couldn't even use your phone, you know what I mean? You had to dial it on. Free serve penny a minute, I can remember back in the day, and a good old AOL as well. But as you see, things do change. And one thing that we sort of alluded to earlier on as well is in regards to time is money. So the more that we can simplify the process and make things easier to secure and easier to manage, actually ensures that the administrators and the customers actually have the time to be able to facilitate and look at the security policy, concentrate on those threats that are present and how we can adapt and obviously work towards that, such as simple VLAN configuration, being able to maintain separation within a single network so that secure devices are maintained on a secure part of the network. Guest facilities, obviously everywhere that you go now offers some form of guest Wi-Fi. Now I've seen that in the past where people have not locked down their system. I was in a hotel in Ireland once and I ran a scan on a network and I picked up all 200 odd devices on there. And at one point I actually found a Roku box which had been flashed and was being used for something malicious. The general manager, when I pointed that out and showed him it, you should have seen the colour drain out of his face. You know what I mean? Anybody knows that in technology, all we've got to do is hook onto a Wi-Fi, use something like the NetAlly, and we'll be able to assess and understand sort of threats that are on there. Part of my job, and I say this all the time, as much as we make a product, I don't sell a product, I sell a solution. You know what I mean? It's all about understanding your businesses, what threats, where are you going in the next 5-7 years? Where is technology going in the next 5 to 7 years? Because it is massively accelerating. The adoption of AI is obviously also helping us. So being able to incorporate the likes of AI into our troubleshooting tools, being able to identify weak areas in Wi-Fi connectivity, again, working alongside the likes of NetAlly, it complements our infrastructure and our product really well. Yeah, these threats are out there, and it's, again, the message of it is all about visibility. The more visibility you have, the better you can react and proactively protect your network and look at things that can actually mitigate any existing threats that potentially could loss of data and obviously reputation in that as well. I always say this. Now, TP-Link's been around since 1996. 1 in 3 households in the UK actually use a TP-Link device. I mean, raise your hands up if you've got a TP-Link device in any one way or another. You know what I mean? We've got our Tapo cameras. You know what I mean? We've got our Archer routers. Now, the Armada is actually designed as an enterprise-level networking management solution, providing you a single pane of glass to be able to monitor and manage your entire infrastructure, backed by a limited lifetime warranty as well with all of our products to ensure that you remain connected, because it's all about a connected digital frontier at the moment. And as I've said, time is money, so making sure that your operational is kept efficient at all times, meaning that people are no longer chasing the tails, running around like headless chickens, trying to figure out where the problems lie. Everything is available, visible in a single pane of glass. And the likes of API integrations working with third parties as well. Not only do we work with our partners and our end users to understand the threats and understand the current economy and where we're going, but we're willing to work with other vendors, other providers, the likes of NetAlly, being able to integrate into those sort of levels and provide a more seamless experience for you guys, because it's all about making things simple and easy for you guys, but making sure that we maintain a higher level of security as well, such as critical firmware management, making sure that all the devices are kept up to date, notified if something does change. We can never say that every vendor in the entire world will not be impacted by some sort of security vulnerability. It's like I always say, the hackers and the malicious people out there will always find a loophole in anything that is ever brought out. So it's how we react and how we can best protect our customers. And having product managers in the UK with direct links with research and development allow us to really jump down that and get potentially firmware written within a couple of days to be able to resolve anything that is exploited. And reducing the risk as well by actually incorporating the security into the networking fabric. So in terms of a gateway, every form of internet connection must go into a gateway. That gateway is designed to route your information, manage your information. Obviously, that is a central point of somebody being able to steal your data, intercept your data as well. So being able to do things such as detection and protection against these malicious signatures is something that is highly important. Being able to block and allow certain communication on your internal network. Again, if you are offering public-based Wi-Fi connectivity, it's being able to maintain that separation from your corporate data to your guest data. And being able to do this with both wired and wireless devices. Obviously, wireless devices are increasing. I'm a lover of cables. You know, Wi-Fi does have its limitations, it does have its problems. But in terms of security, it's always being enhanced. So being able to do things like MAC-based authentication, meaning that specific device and only that device is allowed to be able to be plugged into that port, meaning that no longer can people start unplugging stuff, plugging in and getting access to your corporate data. It's starting to fizzle out a bit more. Doing OUI-based VLAN configuration, again, this is all about simplicity. If, for instance, I deploy a Yealink device into a network and part of my VoIP system, I could use the first 6 octets of the MAC address, and that will automatically be placed on the secure network. So it's not only about security, but it's about ease of use and being able to streamline the installation process, which then, in hindsight, actually benefits everybody as well. Now, the platform that we do use, it is a cloud management platform. We do have hardware level integration as well. And it's always key to point out, it's fully GDPR compliant. It's hosted on the AWS site. The data is held within, it's actually held within Ireland itself. All this information is available to you guys. If you do have any concerns, speak to our large UK present team that we have available. We have a full sales, marketing, as well as technical support team within the UK. Myself, as part of the pre-sales team, we get involved with not only pre-sales and post-sales. It's about building a sense of loyalty and a recursive business and making sure that we can understand your business. So part of my job role is actually to work with you guys to understand not what you need now, but what do you need and where are you going in the future, and being able to innovate our products and our solutions based on feedback from you guys. Because at the end of the day, it's you guys that actually drive the market demands. We can't dictate to you, this is what you're having, go and use it. Life doesn't work like that. We have to work and build that relationship with you guys, and then that helps us to innovate our technology and our solutions to something that actually resonates really well. So I don't think I've been going on for sort of 10 minutes, but that is the end of my presentation. So thank you ever so much for coming. We are right at the back on the stand as well, so feel free to come and speak to us. We can have a bit more of a product-led demonstration as well. If you come over to the demo van, which is where I've been relegated to, so I'm outside. I've got a full interactive solution there where I'll be able to run you through exactly what we can offer in terms of products, solutions. I can discuss the roadmaps and the innovation of where TP-Link are going in the future as well. So thank you ever so much, and I hope you all have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, Grant. Wow, some great presentations there and very informative. I certainly learned quite a bit myself. So I guess this is our stage where you get to sort of tease the team, if you like, and ask some questions in relation to any of the presentations that we've seen so far. Anyone want to kick off with questions? No, as always, come on. I'm sure after all the 5 presentations there, I'm sure there's someone. Okay, maybe I'll kick off and see where we start, and maybe stimulate some questions from yourselves. So we kicked off looking at sort of SIEM and XDR solutions within organizations. And I suppose I was interested in when does an organization, and what sort of size organization, when do they think about the implementation of a SIEM or open XDR solution. And what really are the key sort of deliverables? What are we looking at? Is it based on headcount? Is it based on the type of industry? What are the key sort of areas that should identify where XDR or SIEM should be used?
Hello, is this on?
Can we have the mic?
Hello?
Yep.
Okay. Great question. So there is kind of no set limit on when an organization needs a SIM or an XDR. It really kind of depends on their specific needs. Look, being honest, every organization is probably going to benefit from something like a SIM, and there's tons of free ones out there. So even if you have 5, 10 people in an organization, you're going to benefit from it. What I would personally say before you're purchasing a cybersecurity solution like a SIM, XDR, or anything is you probably should get an assessment on your environment and identify exactly what you need. Many organizations don't know they need specific things for different compliance standards. Just recently we had an organization that had a CIS assessment by us, and they had managed SOC, they had managed EDR, email security, tons of different cybersecurity solutions, but they didn't have network intrusion detection, which was required for compliance. So they didn't have one thing for many years that they were required to have, which is a bit crazy when you think the amount of money they were investing in all of these other solutions.
Thanks very much. Anyone, any other input on that one from anyone else? No? I suppose that's interesting. So just from the panel, for a normal organization, what are the key requirements? If you want to secure your environment, what do you say are the primary requirements that you need? We've talked about the SIM, the XDR. Any other sort of areas that we need to include to secure our environment in a layered sort of approach?
I mean, the problem when you buy a product, like, or you sign up to something like Microsoft 365, is it's out of the box. It's a very vanilla, basic kind of layout. So everybody talks about zero trust now, but the first thing everybody moves towards is MFA. So authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, or some form of SMS messaging to kind of validate that person's in there. So even for the small businesses, there should be, when you start off, there should be a baseline compliance you should adhere to. In the UK, they've got Cyber Essentials, and we were talking about this earlier, Alex, when we, and obviously in Ireland, there's the other standards too, the foundations. So it starts off with, securing the tools you're using. So if you're a cloud native company and you're using Microsoft or Google, you go for the MFA, but then you start branching out into a bigger organization. You're on about SIEM, you've got a firewall, you've got all these other services, you need to be pushing them logs into a central source. And then obviously auditing against that. So it depends on obviously the size of the organization and how you're building, but the simple baseline for any organization should be applying simple security controls like MFA so that someone can't log in as you. I mean, I've got something going on in the background with a phone system where someone's actually trying to log in, and obviously they're getting denied and then getting blocked. But this happens all the time, continually, day and night, depending on the country, and the phone just keeps going off. But yeah, any further comments?
Yeah, I'd add to that. So I agree entirely, 100% with what you just said. Compliance drives a lot of activity. But what people don't realise is if you don't achieve compliance, your cybersecurity insurance is probably going to be null and void, or very, very expensive, or not cover the bits you need it to cover. So I'd say, in addition to what you've just said, make sure every compliance angle is covered. You should have a compliance officer regardless of the size. Make sure that's done. Make sure you get value for money from your cyber insurance. And really look into the type of business you've got. If you've got people out on the road all the time using phones, you've got to be using some kind of mobile MDM solution. You need to look at the business, how the business runs, and what you need to do to keep it running in the event of an attack. And that, I think, gives you your baseline.
Yeah, I think certainly from my point of view, and certainly from the NIS2 and the NIS sort of compliance point of view, there's a huge focus on understanding your environment and being able to map it. And the way I always look at it is looking at your critical business processes, what's critical to you as an organization, and start that mapping process from there. So what's the key technology from that critical business process? What do you need to do that process? What is your key data for that process? Who are your key third-party support providers? And what sort of service? And then you build up your protection framework in line with the risks and the key processes to your organization. I think that's where the visibility piece can come in, the understanding. A challenge to a lot of organizations is really fully understanding their environments, quite often from an audit point of view, I'll come in and say, do you know all your data flows? Do you know all your key processes? Are they documented? And of course, you might say somebody, oh yeah, I know them, but are they formally documented? And are they in line with the current flows that are in operation? And unfortunately, NIS2 is going to bring us to that level of compliance where not only are we going to be able to talk about it, we're going to have to demonstrate to the regulator. We're going to have to provide this type of documentation and make sure it's up to date and make sure it's in line. So then we talked about AI, and I've not been to a cyber conference this year without sort of getting into AI. And I guess the new AI threat and responsibilities, where do they sit? Are they with the CISO or are they with the board? What sort of area are we seeing? Who takes responsibility for AI now?
Well, I think the board is where all the pressure is coming to adopt it, because they want higher margins, they want more productivity, they want less people, or they want the same number of people doing the more. So there's obviously a business directive, so they're going to push that. But I don't think many boards really understand the risks that have been spoken about on the stage today. They think it's this great tool, this magic thing, can do whatever, but just look at what Mythos was able to do. I mean, and that's just one frontier AI. It's going to get better because they're going to learn. So you need to understand that if you adopt this, Mr. CEO or whatever, you've got a tiger by the tail. And frankly, AI, just scares the living daylights out of me as much as it does enthuse me. So in the board, the CEO has got to be aware of the fundamental risk of using AI.
And I guess I'm seeing both sides of that from the audit and consultancy point of view, is where the business side really want to move ahead, but it's the compliance side, the CISOs that are informing the board of the risks, and it's certainly putting sort of the stoppers on, full progress. The key thing really is to have that sort of AI governance process, data governance processes in place, fully documented, so you understand your data flows and you know what data is being utilized and where it's going. Okay, so then we sort of touched on ISO 42001, and that's quite new out there, and most of my clients would be sort of looking for that sort of 20. You're doing well there, aren't you? Most of the clients are looking at the 27001 sort of area, or will have already got the 20. What are the key differences, and why would an organisation consider that 42001?
So before we do that, I would say that really, when you're looking at standards, and I'm kind of teaching people at CEXI here, it's more of an extension of your existing, integrated compliance manual. But really what it boils down to is risk assessments and basically policy and control on how people use and move around the AI kind of controls. So if we kind of look at it from a simple perspective is you want to empower your workforce. So let's say the CEO does agree to kind of move forward with AI, but wants to kind of move forward in a calm and controlled way. First of all, you have to look at the impact. What are we going to use AI for? What are the controls? What are the risks? What are the impacts of that? So, for example, marketing teams that are really pushing hard on AI now. I'm sure I'll be sick of LinkedIn and social media, seeing all the EM dashes appearing everywhere, right? Oh, that was not written by AI. But, how do we control the messaging? So, when you're looking at 42001, it's not just, the risk assessments and the controls, it's the standard operating procedure. What does the business have to do to follow to kind of achieve that? Also, the human in the loop, the gated processes. So the biggest one, believe it or not, and I don't know if anybody does use things like Cursor and AI coding tools, a lot of organizations are moving very quickly to Claude, Cursor, Codex. The biggest issue you've got there is, how do you know what you've done? How do you control what you've actually outputted? So there's all of them sort of risk assessments done. So in our organisation, and when we built all this out, because we use AI coding tools, I should say, to a certain level, but we have a lot of kind of gates and a lot of things that have to go through an approval process and aggressive testing. So we have an AI testing platform which uses a synthetic augmentation testing, and then we also have human testing as well. But it's how you build that control baseline. You can't just click a button and there's a lot of jokes online at the moment where it says, you know, oh, I've just built my first MVP, you know, and pushed it out without any security controls. You do that, good luck. You really are. You were
Obviously, with the adoption of AI, I've started doing a bit of coding. I've always been quite passionate about doing programming, but I've never had the time to be able to actually teach myself how to write code from scratch. So it's actually allowing me to upskill myself, and also being able to do it in a methodical way where you're actually learning what AI is actually doing and being able to actually tell it exactly what you want it to do. With AI, there is an element of where you do need regardless of it just being AI, you need to be able to validate your work, understand exactly what you're putting into it, making sure that if you are looking at data-driven based projects that you're working on, is create a mock set of data so that you're not putting legitimate data in there, because again, that can then be used and maliciously. If something does get breached, it's your company's reputation on the line, which your reputation sometimes you cannot recover from as well. So just do it in like a methodical sort of way and understand exactly how the AI engine's working towards your end goal as well.
Okay, thanks very much. Go on.
So I was just going to say, one of the kind of closing points in my view for the 42001, it's not a complex model to kind of adhere to. So if you were wanting to move on AI, every organisation should be contacting an auditor on 42001, because it's one of the probably more simplest models to kind of roll out now, or compliances to roll out to the business. If you do it now, it'll be a lot easier than doing it later on when things get more complicated.
I suppose, Daniel, if you keep the mic for the final question, unless anyone's got any other. You mentioned the single pane visibility. How can that help to cut incident response times, certainly for smaller organisations?
So having a single pane of glass to be able to actually monitor all your networking needs, being able to see the alerts, the threats, the devices that are connecting is really important, because again, it goes back to that visibility side of things. Being able to have full visibility over exactly what's going on your network is important, because all you need is sit there and do. You get automatic notifications, email notifications. You can have a dashboard on your NOC wall, for instance, so your network operations center, and being able to then respond and deal with those threats reactively, but also being able to proactively look at what potential areas of improvement for your network. So increasing your level of encryption, your VPN connectivity, multi-factor authentication is always important. And then again, being able to lock down individual devices to individual areas. So again, you're providing that level of protection in a single pane of glass. And it makes things, it's all about simplicity, making things easy for you guys to be able to monitor and deal with these threats accordingly, because if it's overcomplicated, that's where things get missed. So being able to offer that simplicity is important, but understanding that under the hood, it is still very advanced in what it can do as well.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll open up to the floor again. Obviously now I've completed my questions. Has anyone got any questions from response to some of the answers there, or anyone thought of anything before we close? No? Okay, I'm sure you'd like to thank the panelists. I called them subject matter experts earlier, and just to remind you, as they have done in their presentation, they have stalls out there. So if you do have those questions specific to your organisation that you'd like to discuss, I'm sure they'll be more than welcome to speak to you. So thank you very much for that.